Did you sleep well last night? Or was it one of those nights again where your body lay still, but your mind refused to rest? No words, no real reason, just a quiet heaviness pressing on your chest, drifting gently with each breath, and yet somehow anchoring you deep into your own thoughts. Maybe you tried all the usual tricks, deep breathing, calming music, telling yourself that everything will be okay. But deep down, something remained unsettled, and in the silence, you began to wonder, am I becoming too sensitive? Or is the world simply too loud? If you felt this way, you're not alone. There's nothing weak about feeling lost. There's no shame in sadness. The problem isn't the presence of emotion, it's how we react to it. Most of us try to fix it, run from it, silence it. But maybe, just maybe, healing begins not with doing, but with noticing. This video isn't here to promise instant happiness or a quick escape from your pain. No, we won't tell you to be stronger, or better, or happier. Instead, we'll do something far more radical. We'll slow down and simply sit with what is. Tonight, I invite you to pause, not to change yourself, not to force sleep, but to gently turn inward, like a leaf drifting toward still water. Together, let's explore the quiet spaces within. Let's listen, not with the mind, but with presence. Let's sit beside our feelings, without judgment, without resistance. You don't have to figure anything out. You don't have to fix the way you feel. All you need to do is be here. And if you're ready, let's begin this gentle journey, not towards something new, but towards something ancient within you. A quiet, spacious knowing. A stillness that has always been there, waiting for you to return. There are nights when sleep seems like a distant dream, slipping away the moment your head touches the pillow. You lie still, and the room is silent almost unnaturally, so yet inside you, the air stirs with restlessness. The chest tightens, your breath shallows, and the mind begins its silent rehearsal of unfinished stories. Perhaps you close your eyes and remind yourself that tomorrow will be better, that dawn will arrive with new light. But the darkness feels infinite, and any promise of relief seems distant. Instead, you hold your breath, feeling the chilly air of your room settle into your lungs, as though the world is reminding you of its emptiness. Have you ever wondered what makes the night so different? Why beneath the veil of silence, our inner storms roar louder? Daylight keeps us busy. Work deadlines, social obligations, routines. We wear our busyness like armor, hiding wounds we don't know how to treat. The world whispers that we should stay strong, stay productive. But when night falls, the mask slips, and our true self stands naked. Tonight, your mind may play back conversations you had years ago, words left unsaid, or said too harshly. You recall that moment when a friend's voice softened, then cracked. You remember the look in someone's eyes when gratitude turned cold, or perhaps the disappointed glance you gave yourself when you failed. These flickers of memory gather into one soft, persistent ache. You might feel regret, now reshaped into a dull ache that scrapes against your heart, or a pulse of shame that travels down your spine. Maybe you're longing for comfort, or feeling the echoes of loneliness, louder now than ever. Whatever the emotion is, it's real, not imaginary, not a trick of the night. It is yours, born from experiences you lived, responses you carried, and pains you haven't yet soothed. And perhaps you find yourself reaching for your phone, a half-written journal, a glass of water, anything that suggests to your mind you're not alone. But then, the thing that once promised escape or distraction flickers out, and the silence resumes. That's when you feel it most, the weight of your inner world. Let's pause here. Breathe with that weight. I invite you to place one hand on your heart, one on your belly kani. Feel the rise and fall of your breath. Don't try to calm it. Just let it move naturally. Let your ribs expand. Let your chest soften. Let your belly fill with air. Then empty. In and out. In and out. Now, still your attention on the sensations in your body. Is there tension at your shoulders? A heaviness around your collarbone? A tightness in your throat or chest? Don't push these feelings away. Invite them in. You don't need to do anything except notice them. Feelings don't need solutions. They need presence. This awareness itself is a gift. It tells your system, your structure, I am here. I am with you. If you're tired, it says, I see you're tired. If you're sad, it whispers, I hear your sadness. Without judgment, without urging you to change, that's all that healing needs, an offering of undivided attention. The mind might attempt to label, analyze, judge. It might say, you should be stronger. You shouldn't feel this way. But let's gently set aside those mental voices for now. They are echoes of past messages of expectations, duties, roles we believed we had to fulfill. Instead, let's stay with this present moment. I am here, and I can sit with you. You might whisper in your mind. If the word you feel's foreign, replace it with me. I am here with me. And as you say those words, you may sense a little space opening inside you, a soft room within your heart. Imagine your heart as a quiet lake, its surface touched by ripples of emotion, waves of regret, fear, longing, loneliness. Notice them. Watch how each ripple forms, travels, fades. Each wave eventually comes to rest, merging back into the stillness beneath. The lake remains intact, even as its surface moves. You don't need to understand why a particular wave appears. You only need to notice it. It could be the memory of a criticism that cut deep, or the loss of something dear, the job you didn't get, a friendship that drifted, a dream paused. Whatever your wave, it's valid. And right now, it's asking for acknowledgement. What if tonight, instead of fearing these waves, you allowed them to teach? What if each ripple held a message rather than a wound? Maybe regret is yearning for a moment that slipped. Maybe loneliness is a reminder of your capacity to care, to connect. Fear may be the heart's language for the unknown, an invitation to tenderness. If tears come, let them flow. Let them be your release, your rite of passage. Tears are water that reminds us of our aliveness, our wounds, our capacity to feel deeply. They don't signify weakness. They are proof of your humanity. Now, remain present. Let the waves pass, one by one. They may circle back, overlapping in unpredictable patterns, yet beneath them, the lake's surface holds. So too, you hold. Becoming aware of this deeper, you the self beneath your emotions brings something intimate and powerful. The sense that I am not my feelings, but I can feel them. And that is enough. You may ask, will this end quickly? Will peace return instantly. Not necessarily. Some waves linger longer. Some nights stretch onward. But tonight, your witnessing makes a difference. It plants a seed of self-kindness, self-trust, and self-presence. If you sense fatigue taking over, you can allow yourself to rest here in your awareness of being. This listening, this witnessing, is a quiet power. It needs no words. It needs no change, just your staying. As your breath continues steady, even notice whether there is any shift, a slight unburdening, as though the heart's valves found a soft release, a gentle loosening in the chest. Sometimes all change begins with a whisper, not a shout. And so, I invite you to stay a few more moments. Allow your heart to drift in its own currents, aware, but unwavering. Your breath is your anchor. Your attention is your companion. Tonight, you are tending the sanctuary within you. You are learning a profound lesson. The antidote to darkness is not avoidance, but presence. The antidote to pain is not resistance, but allowing. The antidote to fear is not battle, but witnessing. Eventually, as the night unfolds, your body may soften, your mind may quiet. Sleep may come naturally, effortlessly, without force. If it does, allow it. If it doesn't, that's okay too. For in staying, in caring, you are already practicing peace. I'll stay with you here until we feel ready to move deeper, or until dawn arrives and your journey continues into the daylight. This is your first wave honored, witnessed, and known. And as the waves arise and as they pass, may you discover something even more real, the stillness in which they happen, the tranquil depth that is forever yours, a quiet treasure of the night. There is an old story from the Buddha, simple, yet quietly profound. He once asked his disciples, if a person is struck by an arrow, is it painful? They nodded. And if that same person, immediately afterward, is struck by a second arrow, would that not be even more painful? The disciples agreed again. Then the Buddha said, in life, we cannot always avoid the first arrow, but the second, that one we often shoot into ourselves. This story isn't ancient wisdom locked in dusty books. It is alive, playing out within us each day, each night, in moments small and great. The first arrow is life. The second is the story we tell about life. Imagine this. You're walking through your day, and someone says something careless. Their words land hard. That's arrow one pain, surprise, maybe disappointment. But instead of just feeling that sting and letting it pass, your mind begins its familiar ritual. Why did they say that? Did I do something wrong? Maybe I'm not enough. I always ruin things. No one truly sees me. That's arrow two, self-inflicted, silent, and sharp. Arrow one is a moment. Arrow two is a narrative. Arrow one is human. Arrow two is habit. And yet, we rarely notice when we pull the second bow. Why? Because the voice that fires it sounds like our own. It's subtle, internal, so well rehearsed it blends with our thinking. We take it as truth, when in reality, it's often old pain repeating itself. Let's look closer. You make a mistake at work. The first arrow, disappointment. Maybe your boss frowns, or your project gets delayed. That's real. That's life. But then your mind says, you'll never succeed. This always happens. You're just not good enough. Suddenly, the wound deepens. The second arrow has hit its mark. or imagine someone you love walks away. The first arrow is heartbreak. The second is the voice whispering, "You weren't lovable enough. You're meant to be alone. You always get abandoned." Pain becomes suffering, and suffering becomes identity. The second arrow doesn't come from the world. It comes from our learned beliefs, our expectations, our fear of not being safe, not being worthy, not being whole. It is not what happens to us that hurts the most. It's what we believe it means about who we are. Here's a gentle truth. The second arrow is optional. It doesn't feel that way. Of course, when the voice is loud, when the inner critic has taken over, it feels automatic. But between arrow 1 and arrow 2, there is a space, a gap, however brief, in which a choice can be made, a breath can be taken, a new pattern can begin. You see, life will sometimes hurt. The body will age. Relationships will shift. Loss will visit. These are the unavoidable arrows of being alive, but suffering sustained, recycled. Magnified suffering is what happens when we keep twisting the arrow inside, again and again. With our minds, what if we didn't? What if, the next time pain arises, we simply said, "Ouch, this hurts," and stopped there? No judgment, no spiraling thoughts, no shame, just acknowledgement, just presence. There's immense power in pausing, in feeling the pain but not personalizing it, in witnessing the storm but not becoming it. Let me offer you a gentle practice, right here, right now. Bring to mind a moment recent or long ago where you felt hurt. Something small, something manageable, not a traumatic memory, but a familiar one. A time when you felt slighted, criticized, left out. Feel the first arrow, the immediate emotion. Name it if you can. Sadness, disappointment, embarrassment. Now notice what story followed it. Did the mind say, "This always happens"? Did it reach into your past, pull up similar events, and tie them together into a pattern? Did it blame? Did it shame? That's the second arrow. Now gently ask yourself, is that story true, or is it familiar? There's a difference. Just because a thought repeats doesn't make it real. Just because it echoes doesn't make it wisdom. Sometimes the most compassionate act we can do for ourselves is to stop mid-thought, place a hand on the heart, and whisper, "Not this time. I choose peace instead." You see, awareness is a kind of medicine. The moment you become conscious of the second arrow, that's the moment healing begins. Not by force, not by pushing it away, but by recognizing, this is the moment I usually turn against myself. What if I don't imagine that? Imagine letting the first arrow be enough. Imagine resting with pain without layering suffering on top. There's a story of a young monk who dropped a glass while setting the dinner table. It shattered loudly across the floor. The elder monk turned, looked him in the eye, and said softly, "Now, pick it up and don't drop yourself with it." That's what most of us do. We don't just drop the glass, we drop our self-worth. We don't just lose a job, we lose our identity. We don't just face conflict, we lose our inner peace. But you're not a broken glass. You're not your worst day. You're not the voice that tells you you're failing. You are the one who hears that voice and has the power to choose a kinder response. So next time something hurts, pause. Let the first arrow pass. Breathe. breathe deeply. Feel what's true in the body, the tension, the ache, the sting. Then notice the story your mind begins to build. See it as a cloud, drifting across the sky of your awareness. Don't chase it. Don't argue with it. Just let it pass. You don't need to believe every thought. You don't need to pick up every arrow. Sometimes peace means not picking up what isn't yours. Sometimes love means placing your hand on your own heart and saying, "This hurts, and I'm here for you." That's not weakness. That's not indulgence. That's courage. True strength is not pretending you're okay. It's being willing to sit with what's not okay and still not abandon yourself. So tonight or tomorrow or whenever the first arrow lands, may you remember this teaching. Let the pain be pain. Let it rise, crest, and fall. But do not shoot the second arrow. Do not turn your suffering into self-punishment. Do not become your own enemy. Instead, be your own shelter. Be your own stillness. Be the quiet space that allows pain to pass through, without becoming the story that stays behind. And in doing so, you'll come to see you are more spacious than your wounds. You are deeper than your narratives. And you are always, always worthy of your own gentleness. There's a curious thing the human mind does, something subtle, often unnoticed. Pain arrives a single moment, a singular event, and then the mind stretches it, multiplies it, layers it with memory. A flash becomes a flood. One ache becomes an entire history of hurt. We don't suffer only from what's happening now. We suffer from what happened before, and from what we fear might happen again. This is how the mind works. It loops. It builds. It protects through prediction. But in doing so, it often binds us to a story we no longer need to carry. You may have felt this before. Something small triggers you: a glance, a tone of voice, a silence. And suddenly, your body tenses, not just from that moment, but from every similar moment that ever came before it. Every time someone looked at you that way, every time your words were misunderstood, every time you felt invisible. That's the mind, reacting not to the present, but to a library of memories. Each memory filed under pain, under rejection, under abandonment. And so, we respond not just to the now, but to the weight of then. Let's say a friend cancels plans at the last minute. A small thing. Right. But if your past holds memories of being left out, of never being prioritized, of always being the afterthought, then this moment becomes more than it is. It becomes a reenactment, and your body feels it as betrayal, not inconvenience. The first pain is real. The second is remembered. The third is imagined. This is the chain of suffering experience: memory, reaction, projection. We feel pain, recall past pain, then act as if that pain is bound to repeat. But what if we saw memory for what it is: not a prophecy, not a sentence, but simply a reflection? What if we allowed each moment to be new, uncolored by the residue of yesterday? It begins with noticing. Try this the next time you feel yourself tightening in anger, in fear, in sadness. Pause. Ask yourself, am I reacting to what's happening now, or to what this reminds me of? That question alone can open space. It can shift your awareness from the storm to the sky that holds it. Often, what hurts isn't the moment, but the meaning we place upon it. A comment feels like rejection, not because of the words, but because we've been rejected before. silence feels like disapproval, because we were once made to feel unworthy. We aren't broken, we're just remembering. Memory itself isn't the enemy. In fact, it's how we learn. But when memory fuses with identity, when it becomes the lens through which we view the present, we lose our freedom. Think of it like this. The past is a painting. It's finished, hanging on the wall. You can observe it. You can appreciate it. You can even learn from its colors and shapes. But you don't need to carry it on your back every day. You don't need to drag the entire gallery into every conversation. The present deserves its own canvas. The problem is, our nervous system doesn't always distinguish between past and present. If a past wound was intense enough, even a hint of similarity now can set off the same alarms. Your heart races, your breath shortens, your thoughts spin. You're back in the old place, though nothing around you has changed. This is why compassion is essential. When you feel a reaction rising, instead of shaming yourself, pause and say, this feels familiar. Then ask gently, what memory might be behind this? Let it arise. Without judgment, hold it like you would a frightened child, with patience, with warmth. A story. There was once a man who visited a Zen master, deeply troubled. He said, "Master, I keep overreacting. Small things make me angry, anxious, defensive. I hate that I'm like this." The master served him tea, slowly, silently. Then he pointed to a bell hanging from the ceiling. "If I strike this bell," he asked, "where does the sound come from?" The man replied, "From the bell, of course." "No," said the master. "The sound is already inside the bell. My strike only releases it, and so it is with us. The world strikes with sound, with gesture, with moment, but the echo, the intensity, comes from within. What gets released is what was already there. Old sorrow, old anger, old fear. The solution, then, is not to silence the world, but to gently tune the bell, to understand what lives inside you, to listen not just to your reaction, but to its root. You may ask, how do I begin? How do I untangle memory from the moment? Start with the body. Before the mind narrates, the body reacts. The shoulders tense. The stomach knots. The chest tightens. These are signals, not warnings, but invitations. They ask, can you sit with me a moment? Can you feel me without fleeing? Place your hand where the tension lives. Breathe into it. Say softly, I feel you. And then, just wait. Not for the feeling to pass, but for your presence to deepen. You see, every reaction is a messenger. It says, something in me was hurt before. Something in me still aches. And when we meet that ache, not with analysis, but with presence, something beautiful happens. The memory dissolves its grip. You begin to see clearly again. You begin to respond, not react. And in that clarity, you reclaim your freedom. Another story. A woman once shared that every time her partner left the room during an argument, she panicked. Her heart raced. Her breath caught. She couldn't think. Later, she realized that in childhood, her father would leave mid-argument and never return. Silence meant abandonment. She wasn't reacting to her partner. She was reacting to her father's ghost. Once she saw this, she was able to speak her truth. She told her partner, when you walk away, I don't just feel dismissed. I feel 5 years old again, unseen and terrified. and her partner, now understanding the context, could meet her with gentleness instead of defensiveness. This is the power of awareness. It transforms patterns into understanding. It turns walls into windows. So next time your heart tightens, your jaw clenches, your thoughts spiral pause, ask what part of me is being reminded. You might find it's a much younger part, a part that simply wanted to be heard, loved, protected. That part doesn't need a solution. It needs your presence. And in offering that presence, you become your own healer. You unhook from the past. You allow the present to be new. Because the truth is not every silence is abandonment. Not every disagreement is rejection. Not every delay is dismissal. But when the past speaks too loudly, we miss what's actually here. To live freely, we must learn to listen to memory, but not obey it. Let it whisper, but don't let it command. Let it inform, but not define. You are not your reaction. You are the awareness holding it. You are not your story. You are the silence underneath it. And each time you pause, breathe, and return, you soften the bond. You loosen the grip. You create a little more space. And in that space, peace lives. What happens when we stop fighting our pain? Not fix it. Not run from it. Not analyze or explain it, but simply allow it to be there, like a guest we didn't expect but choose to welcome anyway. This question, quiet as it may sound, holds the key to profound transformation. Most of us live in resistance. The moment pain appears physical or emotional, we brace, we clench, we seek distraction, we scramble to do something to make it go away, to numb it, to replace it with something brighter. We reach for our phones, our food, our habits, our thoughts. We've been taught, often unconsciously, that pain must be solved, that to feel pain is to fail, that to suffer is a sign we've done something wrong. But what if none of that is true? What if pain, like the weather, simply arises, stays for a while, then passes? Not because we force it out, but because we stop holding it in place. There is a stillness that lives beyond reaction, a quiet space that emerges the moment we choose not to resist. To enter that space, we must practice something rare in our culture: non-reactivity. That doesn't mean suppressing what we feel. It doesn't mean pretending. It means witnessing with full attention, with open awareness what arises, and letting it move through us without becoming it. Imagine this. A wave rises in the ocean. It doesn't fight itself. It doesn't question why it exists. It simply crests, curls, and crashes, then returns to stillness. The ocean never judges its waves. And we, too, can learn this kind of spacious allowing. Try this. Now, bring to mind a discomfort you've been feeling, not too overwhelming, just something present. Maybe it's anxiety in your chest, a sadness lingering near your eyes, or a tiredness in your bones. Close your eyes, if you can. Breathe. Don't ask it to leave. Don't wish it away. Just observe. Where is it in your body? Does it have a shape, a color, a temperature? Can you feel its edges, or is it more like a fog, diffuse and shifting? Notice what happens when you simply pay attention. Often, the sensation begins to move. Sometimes it grows. Sometimes it shrinks. Sometimes it changes form. But one thing always happens. It no longer owns you. The moment you observe pain, it becomes something you are with, not something you are. This is the gentle power of presence. Presence doesn't mean becoming numb. It means becoming available. It means saying, I will not abandon this moment. I will not abandon myself. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. The mind will resist this. It may tell you, this is a waste of time. You should be doing something. You need to solve this. Gently acknowledge that voice. Thank it for trying to protect you. Then return softly. Kindly to the body. Feel what's here. Trust what's here. Because here is the only place healing can happen. There's a story from a forest monastery in Thailand. A young monk was struggling with anxiety. He approached the abbot and said, Master, my mind is restless. I can't meditate. I'm always overwhelmed. The abbot replied, Ah, you are like a man sitting by a river, trying to hold back the current with his hands. No wonder you're exhausted. Why not let the river flow and simply watch it? This is what we do in meditation, in mindfulness. In everyday life, when we choose awareness over reaction, we sit by the river. We stop trying to dam the flow. We let the feelings pass, trusting that none of them are permanent. The truth is, most emotional pain lasts much shorter than we fear if we don't resist it. It is our resistance that prolongs it, our fight to change it, control it, explain it. That is what turns a moment into a narrative, a wave into a storm. When you get angry and immediately lash out, you become the anger. But if you can pause and simply feel the heat rise in your chest, the tension at your jaw, without speaking, then the anger can express itself and fade without becoming your identity. When sadness comes and you immediately think, I shouldn't feel this way, you double the burden. But if instead you say, sadness is here, and you allow it to sit beside you, maybe even cry with it, you create a safe space within. This is the work of gentleness, not fixing, not controlling, just making room. Pain is like a visitor at your door. If you slam it shut, it knocks harder. If you ignore it, it waits in the shadows. But if you open the door, say hello, offer it tea often, it softens. It may not leave immediately, but it no longer feels like a threat. This doesn't mean you have to like your pain, but you can learn to respect it. You can learn to befriend it, because often, pain is a messenger. It says, you have stretched too far. It says, you have carried too much. It says, something in you needs to be seen. By witnessing pain, you honor it. And in that honoring, you find your strength, not the strength of pushing through, but the strength of staying with, of not flinching, of saying, even now, I am here. So the next time a hard moment arises, pause. Let go of the need to react. Take a breath. Place a hand over your heart, or wherever you feel the sensation most strongly, and simply observe. Say, silently, this is pain. This is what pain feels like. And then say, and I can be with it. Not forever, just for now. One breath at a time. One moment at a time. One heartbeat at a time. This is how we transform, not by escaping, but by returning. Returning to ourselves. Returning to this breath. Returning to the sacred practice of not abandoning what's real. Because in truth, every time we sit with our pain, not run, not fix, not hide, we reclaim a piece of ourselves. We become whole, not by erasing what hurts, but by welcoming it home. She sits at the edge of her child's empty bed, fingers lightly tracing the stitched stars on the pillowcase, the ones they picked out together. The room is still not quiet, but still. A kind of sacred silence hangs in the air, thick with memories. The scent of talcum powder and bedtime books lingers, like echoes that refuse to leave. This is a mother in mourning, not the public kind of mourning, where people bring flowers and whisper condolences. This is the silent, personal mourning that takes place in the hours no one sees at dusk, when the house dims, and everything feels slightly too quiet, slightly too full of what used to be. Her child is gone, and no amount of reasoning, of spiritual philosophy, of whispered reassurance can change that fact. But she is not here to be told to let go. She is here to see herself fully, gently, as she is, and that, perhaps, is the most radical act of all. Because what we often forget is that grief is not a mistake to be corrected. It is not a weakness to be cured. It is a process, a sacred one, a painful one, a real one. And in the presence of that grief, something beautiful can quietly unfold compassion. Not just for others, but for ourselves. You see, this mother, like so many of us, tried to be strong. She cooked. She cleaned. She smiled at neighbors. She told herself, I must carry on. And she did. But every now and then, a wave would rise out of nowhere. At the supermarket, while reaching for apples, in traffic, at a red light, on the sofa, watching a child laugh on television. And in those moments, the strength cracked, the pain came, and with it, the shame. I shouldn't be this emotional. She would think, it's been months. Other people move on. I have to keep going. Arrow 1 loss. Arrow 2 self-judgment. But one night, she did something different. She sat on the floor. She took the child's old drawing, a crayon rainbow with crooked letters spelling mom, and held it to her chest. And for once, she didn't try to be okay. She cried, not small tears, not dignified ones. She wept the kind of weeping that shakes the bones, that empties the lungs, that cleanses something ancient. And when the tears slowed, when the silence returned, she noticed something. There was no judgment in the room. The walls didn't criticize her. The pillow didn't ask her to be stronger. The drawing didn't tell her to move on. All of it simply witnessed her, and in that moment, she realized perhaps she, too, could witness herself with the same kindness. That was the beginning of seeing pain, not as a failure, but as a thread in the fabric of her love. The beginning of understanding that grief doesn't disappear, it changes form. Some days it's heavy, other days it's soft. Some mornings it sleeps, other nights it returns uninvited, but honest, and maybe, just maybe, that's okay. You see, we often think healing is about erasing pain, but healing, real healing, is about expanding the space within us so that pain has room to breathe, so it no longer owns us, so we no longer hide it in shame. For this mother, grief didn't end, but her relationship with it changed. She stopped asking, when will this go away, and began asking, how can I meet this today? She stopped saying, I should be over this, and started saying, this is love, finding its voice. Because that's what grief is, love that has nowhere to go. And when we allow ourselves to feel it fully without resistance, Without self-judgment, it begins to move again. It softens. It flows. It becomes part of us, not as a wound, but as a well. One day, the mother was walking by the park where she used to take her child. She saw another mother pushing a stroller. For a moment, the familiar ache returned sharp, precise, undeniable. But this time, she didn't look away. She smiled, quietly, not at the woman, but at herself, a smile that said, "Yes, it still hurts, and I can hold this pain." That moment wasn't grand. It wasn't a breakthrough, but it was real. And realness in the landscape of healing is everything. She learned. Over time, that presence was her truest comfort. Not advice, not distraction, not avoidance, but presence, the ability to sit beside her sorrow as one would sit beside a dear friend, offering nothing but company. She lit candles on difficult anniversaries. She spoke her child's name aloud. She allowed herself to miss them deeply, openly, and in doing so, she stayed connected, because letting go doesn't mean forgetting. Letting go means releasing the resistance to remembering. It means making space for the memory to be a companion, not a captor. And in that spaciousness, she found herself again, a different self, a softer self, a self shaped not just by loss, but by the capacity to feel, to love, to grieve, to continue. So if you, too, carry a loss, whether of a person, a dream, a season of life, know this: you do not need to be over it. You do not need to pretend. You do not need to be fixed. You only need to see yourself truly, fully, kindly. Place your hand over your heart. Say gently, "This hurts, and I am still here." Say, "This pain is part of my love." Say, "I do not have to carry this alone." Let yourself weep if the tears come. Let yourself breathe if the breath returns. Let yourself be still. If that is all you can do, and when the time is right, you will rise not because you forced it, but because the ground beneath you softened. This mother's story is not just hers. It is all of ours. Because grief, in its deepest truth, is not a weight, it is a doorway. And on the other side is a life still worth living. Not the same life, but a life that holds both sorrow and sunrise, both silence and song. A life where you, exactly as you are welcome. Anger flares up sharp, hot, fast. Sadness descends slow, heavy, quiet. Joy bubbles light, warm, fleeting. Fear rushes in sudden, tight, blinding. These are the textures of emotion. They arrive like weather patterns, unexpected, alive, and often beyond our control. They can be soft as mist or fierce as thunder, and they are real, so very real in our bodies, in our breath, in the way they color our world, but they are not who we are. This truth is simple, yet deeply liberating. You are not your emotions. You experience them. You hold them. You witness them, but you are not defined by them. It's easy to forget this. When anger arises, it feels personal. It feels like you are angry, as if your entire being has been overtaken. When shame appears, it wraps around your identity like a fog. When anxiety visits, it feels like the world is collapsing, like there is no you apart from this racing breath, this tightening chest, this urgent pulse. But pause, breathe, notice. Something remarkable happens when you stop identifying with your emotions, when you realize that what you're feeling is something you're having, not something you are. It's the difference between saying, I am sad and sadness is here. The first fuses identity with emotion. The second creates space. This space is freedom. In that space, you can watch what arises without being swept away. You can witness anger without becoming harsh. You can observe fear without shrinking. You can sit with sadness without collapsing. Emotions are visitors, sometimes loud, sometimes gentle, but they are not permanent residents. They come to teach, to reveal, to pass through. And when we allow them to move without resistance or ownership, they complete their cycle and dissolve. You are the sky. Emotions are the weather. They may cloud you. They may storm within you, but they do not define your vastness. Let's sit with this for a moment. Close your eyes. If it feels safe, take a breath. Bring to mind a recent emotion that visited you, something strong, something sticky. See if you can remember what it felt like in the body. Where did it live? Was it hot? Cold? Tense? Was it a thought loop? A pressure? A weight? Now ask gently, is this me, or is this something I felt? Feel the space in that question. That's the beginning of liberation. Many spiritual traditions, including Buddhism, teach that emotions arise due to causes and conditions not from some essential flaw in who you are, but from patterns of thought, memory, habit, and response. A critical email leads to anxiety. A kind smile leads to warmth. A painful memory leads to grief. Each emotional state arises because something triggered it. And if the causes pass, the emotion shifts. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is final. And if emotions are impermanent, then how can they possibly define something as deep and constant as yourself? But here's where things get tender. We live in a world that rewards identity. We say things like, I'm an anxious person, or I'm always angry, or I'm just emotional. These phrases may feel accurate, but they're also limiting. They trap a passing state into a permanent label. And when we label ourselves, we lose the flexibility to change. Instead, try shifting the language. I'm feeling anxiety right now. I notice anger is here. This sadness is visiting. Do you feel the difference? This language honors the emotion's reality without claiming it as self. This is not denial. This is awareness. You can be fully present with a feeling and still know, this is not the whole of me. There's a practice in mindfulness called noting. When a feeling arises, you simply say silently, gently thinking, worrying, judging, grieving, or whatever fits. You don't push it away. You don't grab hold. You just name it. And naming is powerful. It brings clarity. It separates you, the witness, from the wave, because that's what emotions are. Waves, sometimes big, sometimes small, but always moving, always changing, and like a surfer, your job is not to control the sea, it's to ride the waves with awareness, with grace, with balance. Here's a story. A young woman once approached a meditation teacher and said, "My sadness is who I am. It's been with me so long. I don't know where it ends, and I begin." The teacher replied, "Let's sit in silence. When sadness comes, just say, 'This is sadness.' Watch it, feel it, but don't speak to it. Don't feed it. Just watch." They sat for 30 minutes. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but by the end, her shoulders relaxed. Her breath deepened. She whispered, "It moved. I didn't make it move, but it moved. The teacher smiled. Yes, because you stopped holding it. Sometimes, we hold our emotions too tightly. We wear them like armor, like identity, like proof of our story. But emotions want to move. They are like birds in the sky. They fly freely if we don't trap them. So the next time emotion visits, invite it to sit beside you, not on your shoulders, not inside your chest, but beside you, like an old friend misunderstood, but familiar. You can say, "Hello, anger, I see you," or sadness, "I know you're here." Take your time. This soft approach creates inner safety. It tells your system, there's nothing to fear. You are not broken. You are simply feeling. You'll notice as this practice deepens that something beautiful begins to happen. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop drowning. You start observing. And in that space of observation, there is choice. The choice not to lash out when you're angry. The choice not to believe the hopelessness of a sad thought. The choice not to collapse when fear knocks at your door. You don't need to fight your feelings. You only need to befriend your awareness, because awareness is who you truly are. It sees all yet remains unchanged. It feels all yet stays still. It welcomes all yet clings to none. This awareness is your true self, not your thoughts, not your moods, not your shifting states, but the presence that holds them all. You are that presence, and from that place, every emotion becomes a passing cloud seen, honored, allowed, and released. So next time the sky darkens within you, remember, you are not the storm. You are the sky. Who are you? It seems like a simple question, and yet, when you pause, really pause, you may find that the answer is not so clear. You might say, I'm a teacher. I'm a parent. I'm someone who feels deeply. Or I'm a quiet person who struggles with anxiety. But if we look more closely, these are not the essence of who you are. They are roles, experiences, and tendencies. They are reflections, not the light itself. In Buddhist teaching, there is a framework, subtle, profound, that helps us explore this mystery of identity. It is called the 5 aggregates, or the 5 skandhas. It teaches that what we call self is not a single, solid entity, but rather a process, a flowing combination of 5 ever-changing elements, like a rainbow, beautiful and visible, but made only of light and water and angle. The self seems real, yet is not a fixed thing. Let's walk slowly through these 5 aggregates, not as theory, but as direct experience. Let's feel them, one by one, and see what we find. 1. Form rupa. This is the body, the material, flesh, bone, skin, nerves, senses. It is what we often first identify with the face in the mirror, the aching knee, the hunger in our belly. And yet, form is not static. This body has changed every year of our life. The child's face, the teenager's hands, the elder's shoulders, all are part of one body, yet none define it completely. Cells die, muscles shift, skin wrinkles. The body renews itself constantly. So if the body is always changing, can it be the self? You can observe your body. You can feel it. You can even lose parts of it. A limb, a tooth, and still remain you. So the body is not the self. It is part of the process, but not the whole truth. Feeling Vedana. This is not emotion, not yet. Feeling here means the immediate tone of experience pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. When you sip tea, it may be warm and soothing. That's a pleasant feeling. When someone speaks harshly, a quick sting arises unpleasant. Sitting still, not quite bored or engaged, neutral. These tones arise automatically, constantly. Every sight, sound, taste, or touch is filtered through this sense of, do I like this, dislike this, or feel indifferent? But this tone, too, is fleeting. It changes moment by moment. What you loved yesterday might annoy you today. What felt scary last month might now seem trivial. If your preferences are always shifting, how can they define who you are? And if you can observe your liking and disliking, who is the one observing? The self cannot be feeling. It is simply a wave passing through the ocean of awareness. 3. Perception. Sanya. This is how we recognize, label, interpret. You see a shape and say, that is a tree. You hear a sound and say, that is laughter. You feel warmth and recall, this reminds me of home. Perception organizes the world. It helps you navigate. But it is also limited, shaped by memory, culture, mood. Two people can hear the same words and perceive entirely different meanings. Perception, too, is not stable. What you once called enemy may become friend. What you once dismissed as nothing may become sacred. So if perception changes, if it filters and distorts, how can it be trusted to define the self again? You are not your perceptions. You are the one noticing how perception colors your experience. 4. Mental formations, sankhara. This is the realm of thoughts, intentions, habits, emotions, the inner formations that drive your actions. When anger arises and your fists clench, that's a formation. When kindness stirs and you speak softly, that too is a formation. Some arise from conditioning, others from intention. Some repeat without awareness, others are chosen. They can be helpful compassion, patience, wisdom. They can be harmful jealousy, greed, fear. But all of them without exception are impermanent. You may think, I am always anxious, but look closer. There are moments of calm, moments of joy. The anxiety is a frequent visitor. Yes, but it is not your essence. You may say, I am a kind person. But even kindness, as beautiful as it is, arises and passes. So if all mental formations shift, how can the self be found within them? You are the witness to these patterns, not the patterns themselves. 5. Consciousness, vijnana. This is the knowing, the bare awareness that sees, hears, feels, senses. It is divided into 6 types in traditional teaching: eye consciousness, ear consciousness, and so on. Consciousness is the backdrop of experience, but even consciousness is not fixed. It arises with contact. When there is a sound, there is hearing. When there is no sound, the ear consciousness fades. It is not always on. It depends on conditions. And consciousness, too, is observed. When you sit in stillness, you can notice the awareness of your breath. But what is it that notices the awareness? Even consciousness, subtle and vast, cannot be the self. So, if the body is not self, if feelings are not self, if perceptions are not self, if thoughts, habits, emotions are not self, if even consciousness is not self, then what remains? This is not a void, not a nihilism. but a profound invitation. What remains is space. What remains is freedom. What remains is the vast, open awareness in which all things come and go, but nothing sticks. This is not a truth to believe. It is a truth to see. Sit. Observe. Feel each aggregate arise and pass, and you will discover moment by moment that your suffering came not from what you felt, but from thinking that what you felt was you, that your burden was not in the storm, but in identifying with the storm. When you no longer cling to the body, you are not enslaved by aging. When you no longer cling to feeling, you are not ruled by pleasure or pain. When you no longer cling to perception, you can see beyond distortion. When you no longer cling to thought, you can rest in peace. When you no longer cling to consciousness, you are free even from the idea of I am. This is not detachment in the cold sense. It is intimacy without ownership. It is love without clinging. It is presence without self-reference. And it is possible, not through belief, not through theory, but through quiet, sustained observation with breath, with kindness, with patience. Let yourself be the sky. Let the 5 aggregates be the clouds. They move. You remain, and in that remaining, you discover a selfless self empty of fixation, full of possibility. This is not loss. It is awakening. There is a stillness, deeper than silence, a space beyond thought, a presence behind all things. The Buddhists call it shunyata, emptiness. But this emptiness is not nothingness. It is not bleak. It is not hollow. It is vast. It is full of possibility. It is the open sky in which everything appears and disappears. It is the space in which suffering ends. Let us begin not with philosophy, but with the everyday. You walk into a room. It's filled with furniture, pictures, movement. But what makes the room usable, what allows life to happen, is not the objects. It's the space between them. That space is emptiness, not absence, but potential. Now imagine your mind. Thoughts move in and out. Feelings rise and fall. Sensations ripple through. But between every thought is a pause. Between every emotion is a breath. Between every reaction is a choice. That pause, that breath, that space is emptiness. We suffer not because thoughts arise, but because we cling to them. We suffer not because feelings visit, but because we grasp, resist, possess, and emptiness. True emptiness is the freedom from that grasping. It is not cold detachment. It is the warm, open-hearted recognition that nothing needs to be held. Nothing needs to be fixed, owned, or made permanent, because nothing is permanent. Let's explore this slowly. Grasping is the act of trying to hold on to what is passing. You feel joy and you want it to stay. You experience love and you fear losing it. You taste success and you tighten your grip. But everything in life, by nature, moves. The flower blooms and wilts. The song begins and ends. The breath comes and goes. To grasp is to fight the river. And in fighting, we exhaust ourselves. We drown in our own resistance. What if we let go? Not abandon, just soften. What if, instead of saying, "This must last," we said, "This is beautiful." Even as it passes, what if love didn't need to be possessed, but simply experienced moment by moment? This is the teaching of emptiness. Everything arises dependent on causes and conditions. when those conditions change. So does the experience. It's not personal. It's not punishment. It's just how the world breathes. Resistance is the other side of the coin. We push away what we dislike. We recoil from discomfort. We avoid what makes us vulnerable. We say, "This shouldn't be happening. This isn't fair. I can't handle this." But resistance tightens the knot. The more we push against pain, the deeper it embeds itself. Emptiness offers another way. It says this, too, is arising. Let it be. Not passive acceptance, not resignation, but radical presence. Imagine standing in the rain. You can curse the sky. You can run and hide. Or you can simply feel the drops cold, wet, real. They will pass. So will the storm inside you. So will the sorrow. So will the fear. You are not required to like it, but you are free, truly free, when you stop resisting it. Let it arise. Let it move. Let it fall away. This is emptiness in action. Not running, not clinging, just allowing. Possession is perhaps the deepest illusion. We think, this is my body, my thought, my success, my child, my idea. But where is the mine? The body changes without your consent. Thoughts appear uninvited. Children grow beyond your control. Ideas vanish as quickly as they came. Nothing is truly owned. Everything is borrowed for a time. This might sound frightening at first, but listen again. If nothing is possessed, nothing needs to be protected. Nothing needs to be perfect. Nothing needs to be held forever. You can simply experience life as it is, moment to moment. This doesn't mean you love less. It means you love freely, without demand, without attachment, without fear. Because emptiness does not mean absence of love. It means absence of clinging. And that is the deepest love of all. There's a parable in Zen. A monk asks his teacher, "What is the way to liberation?" The teacher says nothing. He picks up a teacup. He holds it high. Then he lets it fall. It shatters on the floor. The monk is silent. The teacher says, "That is the way. Letting go. Not carelessly, not destructively, but naturally as a leaf falls in autumn, as a bird takes flight, as breath leaves the body. To live in emptiness is not to lose everything. It is to lose the illusion that you ever owned it. And in that loss is great peace." Nan Den Ten. Together, close your eyes. Bring to mind something you're holding tightly, a goal, a relationship, a fear, a memory. Notice how it lives in your body. Is there tension? A grip? A knot? Now imagine loosening your hold, not dropping it, just softening, letting it rest in your open palm, rather than clutching it in a closed fist. Feel the difference. Can you love? Without owning, can you care? Without clinging, can you feel? Without resisting. This is emptiness, not absence, but space. The space in which everything is allowed. And nothing must stay. When the Buddha spoke of emptiness, he wasn't describing a void to be feared. He was pointing to the freedom beyond the illusion of permanence. He was saying, "You are not your roles, not your possessions, not your pain, not your thoughts. You are the space in which all of these come and go. You are empty and therefore free." Emptiness is the soft breath before a new beginning. It is the quiet after the storm. It is the pause that reveals you were never incomplete. You were simply clinging to forms that could not stay. And now, in this spacious awareness, you begin to trust the flow, to trust impermanence, to trust that whatever comes can be met, and whatever goes need not be chased. In emptiness, there is peace, not because life stops changing, but because you no longer demand that it stay the same. You walk lightly, you love deeply, you hold loosely, and in that looseness, in that space, you discover the deepest truth. Nothing is yours. Everything is you. He used to believe he was born for greatness. Even as a child, he would close his eyes and see color streaks of blue, aching reds, sudden flashes of light that only he could interpret. He would draw in the margins of textbooks, sketch faces on napkins, turn pain into line and shape. People called him gifted. Teachers praised him. Friends admired him. His mother once said, "You see the world differently. My son, one day, they'll see it too." And so he carried that sentence like a secret flame, a quiet promise from the universe. He went to art school. He studied the masters, Dali, Pollock, Rothko. He rejected trends and sought truth. He painted what hurt. He painted what healed. He put pieces of himself into every canvas. And yet, the world didn't respond. No exhibitions, no buyers, a few polite compliments, but mostly silence. So he tried harder. He painted more. He took risks, switched styles, submitted to competitions, begged curators for 5 minutes of their time. Nothing. At 36, he stood in his tiny apartment, staring at a stack of unsold canvases. Rent was overdue, the power bill unpaid. His body was tired, his heart bruised, and something inside him began to crack. He had always believed that he was his art, that his identity, his worth, his existence was tied to creation. If the art was rejected, then what did that say about him? He began to hear a voice inside, not loud, but persistent. "You are nothing. You have failed. You were wrong. And worse, you don't exist." It was a terrifying thought, that all these years the dreams, the devotion, the suffering had built toward emptiness. But as he sat in silence that night, surrounded by brushes and dust, something unexpected happened. He stopped fighting the thought. He let it in. He let it wash over him like cold water, shocking, but strangely clarifying. "What if I am nothing?" he whispered, and instead of panic came peace. Because in that moment, something deeper stirred, the realization that maybe he never had to be someone, that the self he had built, the artist, the visionary, the misunderstood genius was just a story he loved, a story that comforted, but a story nonetheless. And when the story failed, the pain wasn't just about art. It was about identity collapsing. It was the ego, carefully curated, finally coming undone. And maybe that was okay. He began to remember moments before the identity, before art became ambition, before creation became currency. When he was 10, he would draw in the dirt with a stick just for the joy of the line. No audience, no praise, just movement, shape, wonder. That boy didn't care about success. That boy was free. Maybe that was the real artist. Not the one striving, but the one being. He started painting again, but differently. He stopped trying to prove anything. He stopped painting for approval. He painted like he was 10. Again, lines in the dirt. Sometimes the canvas was unfinished. Sometimes it was burned. Sometimes he painted and then painted over it the next day. It wasn't about the product. It was about the process, the flow, the moment, the movement. And in that movement, the self began to dissolve, not into despair, but into presence. People noticed. There was a rawness in the new work, a tenderness, a freedom. A gallery curator stumbled upon one of his pieces left anonymously in a community hall. She called it hauntingly empty, beautifully whole. He smiled, but didn't respond, because the point wasn't recognition anymore. It was the release of needing recognition. And the artist had dissolved, and what remained was creation. Not his creation, just creation. Like a bird singing without needing to be heard, like the sun shining without needing thanks. Like life, moving through form. He still lived in the same apartment, still paid bills, still had hard days. But he no longer confused his pain with personal failure. He no longer confused rejection with erasure. He no longer confused the self with the story. He became lighter, not in the way of floating, but in the way of no longer carrying what wasn't real. He said to a friend once, "I thought I needed to become someone. Now, I just need to be." The friend didn't understand, but that was okay. It didn't need to be understood. It just needed to be lived. So, what happens when the identity collapses, when the dream doesn't come true, when the self dissolves? Something unexpected. Not darkness, not void, but clarity, peace, stillness. Because what's left isn't less than, is more true. You try this now. Recall a story you've told about yourself for years. I am the caregiver. I am the successful one. I am the failure. I am the misunderstood one. I am the artist. Hold that story gently. Then ask, what if this is just a story? What if I am not this role? What if, underneath it all, I am simply here, not less, not empty, but free? The artist still paints, but now, when people ask, "What do your paintings mean?" he simply shrugs. He says, "They mean what you feel, and that's enough." He doesn't need to be known. He doesn't need to be seen, because in dissolving the self, he found the world again, not as a place to conquer, but as a space to participate, to witness, to love, to let life move through him without claim, without resistance, without self, just life, just this. When you let go of the self, what remains? When the titles fall away, The striving softens. The mirrors no longer reflect a fixed image. What is left? It is a frightening question at first, because we are taught, from the beginning, to build a self, to name it, to decorate it, to protect it, to defend it. But the self, as we know it, is not solid. It is a river made of memory, habit, projection, fear, and hope, a patchwork of moments stitched into a story. And when that story unravels, it can feel like dying. But it's not a death of life. It's the death of illusion. And what remains is the one thing that was never born and never dies. Presence, pure, open, wordless presence. Imagine standing on a cliff's edge at sunrise. No thoughts, no name, just wind on your skin, light on the water, breath moving in and out, no one watching, no one being watched. Only this, only now. That is what remains when the self dissolves. Not a void, not a lack, but a fullness too vast to hold. You don't disappear. You dissolve into something deeper. What is it like to live from that space? You still move, still speak, still feel joy and pain, but you no longer take it so personally. You no longer hold on to each emotion like proof of identity. You no longer need to be someone, because being is enough. You don't cling to praise. You don't collapse in criticism. You don't get lost in stories. You meet each moment fresh like it's the first and only, because it is. And that freshness brings wonder, even in ordinary things. A cup of tea becomes a ceremony. A walk to the store becomes a pilgrimage. A conversation becomes a mystery unfolding. Anastar. There's a story told of a monk who was asked, "What did you gain from meditation?" He replied, "Nothing." "But then why meditate?" they asked. He smiled. "Because of what I lost: fear, anxiety, need for approval, identity. That is the secret. Letting go does not take away your life. It gives it back. Without the filter of self, you begin to see clearly. You see others not as threats or tools, but as fellow waves in the same sea. You stop asking, "How am I doing?" and start asking, "What is life asking of me in this moment?" You stop needing to be right and begin needing only to be real. The question is not, "Who am I?" The deeper question is, can I live without needing to be someone? Can I walk through this world without constantly referencing myself? Can I love without possession? Can I speak without performing? Can I feel pain without turning it into identity? Can I be simply, quietly, deeply, here? Try this now. Sit in stillness. Let go of your name. Let go of your age. Let go of your gender. Let go of your roles. Parent, child, worker, seeker. Let go of the stories. Success, failure, trauma, ambition. Let it all drop. What remains? Breath, awareness, space, peace. That's it. That's everything. And from this place, you can return to life not as the self, but as life itself moving, washing dishes, not as a person doing a task, but as awareness meeting water, warmth, sound. Holding a child, not as me comforting them, but as love expressing through form. Crying not as failure, but as the sky releasing rain. laughing not as reward, but as joy breaking through. You become less of a character in a story and more of a presence in a moment, not smaller, not invisible, but unburdened. And yes, you will forget. The self will return, again and again. It will whisper, "You're not enough." It will shout, "Look at me." It will tighten around praise. It will flinch from shame. But now you know, you are not that voice. You are the silence it echoes in. You are the space it arises from. You are the sky, not the cloud. What remains when you let go of the self-everything, the rustle of leaves, the smell of rain, the touch of a hand, the moment as it is no filter, no fight. And in that moment, you do not disappear. You finally arrive. Not as someone, but as this. The city never sleeps. It pulses, traffic humming, horns blaring, lights flickering long after midnight. Somewhere, always, a train arrives, a siren echoes, a phone vibrates, skyscrapers stretch toward the clouds while beneath them, people rush. 1,000 lives crossing, colliding, collaging into a single restless organism. And in the middle of it all, you stand, searching for stillness. But how? How do you meditate in a world that never slows down? How do you breathe deeply when everything pulls you forward? How do you hear silence when your ears are full of engines and voices and notifications? It's tempting to believe that peace is elsewhere in a monastery, a forest, a retreat far from the density of modern life. But what if the stillness you seek is not somewhere else? What if it's right here, within the noise, beneath the motion, behind the glass and concrete? What if the most profound silence lives at the very center of sound? Let's begin again, not by escaping, but by looking more deeply. You are in a cafe. Voices murmur. Cups clink. A child cries. A song plays low in the background. It feels chaotic. But try this instead of resisting the noise. Listen to it completely, not as a disruption, but as music. Let the sounds arrive without judgment. Let them pass without control. Just sit. Just breathe. Soon, you may notice the noise no longer dominates. It becomes space, layers, texture, movement within stillness. Because stillness isn't the absence of activity, it's the absence of resistance to what is.
Every day with the forest.
But one day, the forest was closed due to a wildfire. He had no choice but to return to the city. He was devastated. "How can I meditate in this chaos?" he asked his teacher. The teacher smiled, handed him a bell, and said, "Go to the busiest street corner. Every time your mind wanders, ring the bell once and return to the breath." A week later, the monk returned peaceful, radiant. He said, "I used to need silence to find stillness. Now, I see stillness as wherever I allow it to be." And the city becomes your teacher if you let it. The flashing billboard reminds you everything is impermanent. The crowded subway teaches you patience. The long line at the market invites presence. Even the siren, loud, urgent, alarming, can become a bell of mindfulness. Wake up. It says, life is happening now. You don't need a quiet mountain to be still. You need a quiet moment of attention right here, in the city's heartbeat. Try this the next time you're walking downtown. Turn off your music, put away your phone, and simply walk. Feel the sidewalk under your feet. Notice the rhythm of your steps. Observe the buildings, the faces, the flow. No need to name. No need to judge. Just see, just move. You are no longer a commuter. You are a witness. And in witnessing, you are free. There's a Zen saying before enlightenment: chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. In the city, before mindfulness, commute. Eat, work, sleep. After mindfulness, commute. Eat, work, sleep. But everything changes because the quality of attention has changed. Mindfulness is not about doing something different. It is about doing the same thing, but with your full presence. And when presence returns, even traffic becomes sacred. Even noise becomes a mantra. Even strangers become mirrors. Of course, the city is not always kind. There are days when the noise overwhelms, when the rush tightens your chest, when the lights feel too bright, when the pace feels too fast. On those days, find your inner bench. Find your sanctuary within the body. Your breath is your park. Your heartbeat is your retreat. Your exhale is your temple. Sit on the bus and close your eyes. Listen to one breath in, out. Let it anchor you, not away from the world, but deeper into it. Let the breath be the thread that stitches you back to now. There's a man who sells fruit on a busy corner every day from dawn to dusk. He stands arranging bananas, calling out prices, wiping sweat from his forehead. People barely notice him. But if you watch closely, he is meditating, not in lotus pose, but in presence. Each movement is deliberate. Each word is kind. Each exchange is full of care. He is not rushing. He is not distracted. He is there, completely. Stillness, in motion, silence, in action. He has become the eye of the storm, and you can, too. So many think stillness means stopping. But real stillness is not lack of movement. It is a movement without inner conflict. It is living, acting, speaking without rushing, without gripping, without splitting yourself into parts. You can answer emails with stillness. You can cross a street with stillness. You can hold your child in a crowded mall and still be entirely present. Stillness is not somewhere you go. It is how you go. Try this today. Find 5 minutes wherever you are, in your car, on your break, between meetings. Put your feet flat on the floor. Take one conscious breath. Feel your body. Feel the air around you. And whisper, "This is it. Not later. Not better. Now." This moment, noisy, imperfect, real is enough, because you are here, and here is where stillness lives. A man sits quietly in his room, eyes closed, back straight, breath slow. He thinks he's meditating, but inside, his thoughts run wild. Am I doing this right? Why am I still anxious? I should feel calmer by now. This isn't working. He judges. He tries to fix. He fights what is. And in doing so, he misses the entire point. Because meditation is not about changing the moment. It's about being with the moment just as it is. Not to perfect it, not to control it, but to see it clearly. To see the thought without chasing it. To feel the emotion without becoming it. To meet the breath without reshaping it. To witness without judging or fixing. We have been conditioned to fix things. When something breaks, we repair it. When someone is sad, we try to cheer them up. When we feel discomfort, we rush to escape it. This habit of fixing runs deep. And while it's often useful in the world, it can be a barrier in practice. Because not everything needs to be changed. Some things need to be seen, held, allowed. Like clouds passing across the sky, nothing to be done, only to be noticed. Meditation is not self-improvement. It is self-revealing. You are not building a better you. You are learning to step aside and let what is reveal itself. Like watching the moon reflected in water. You don't grab the moon. You simply watch, and in that watching, something still and vast opens inside you. There's a Zen story. A student comes to the master, frustrated. My mind is full of thoughts. He says, "How do I silence them?" The master says, "Show me this mind." The student replies, "I can't. It keeps changing." The master smiles. "Then, it's not your enemy." The student blinks, and something inside him softens. He realizes he doesn't need to fight his mind. He only needs to see it, moment by moment, with kindness. This is the heart of the practice, not trying to silence the mind, but listening to it without fear, not trying to force peace, but recognizing where peace is already waiting. When anger arises, don't push it away. Say, "I see you." When sadness visits, don't bury it. Say, "You're welcome here." When boredom, joy, numbness, tension, longing, whatever it is, comes knocking, just see it. Not with a sharp eye, with a soft one, not like a judge, like a friend. Think of a child crying. You don't fix the child by saying, "Stop crying." You sit down, you hold them, you say, "I see you, I'm here." And slowly, the child feels safe. The same is true of your inner life. Your anxiety does not need analysis. Your frustration does not need a solution. It needs your attention. It needs your warmth. And when you give it, that it begins to soften on its own. Try this. Sit. Close your eyes. Feel your breath. Now notice what arises. A thought, a feeling, a sensation. Don't name it. Don't judge it. Just see. Let it move. Let it pass. And if you find yourself judging, "I shouldn't be thinking this. I should be more focused," notice that too. Even the judging mind can be seen. You are not the judge. You are the one who sees the judge with love. This is radical because we are taught that only when we fix something, we are good. But here you are, good when you do nothing, when you see without agenda, when you allow without resistance, when you let life live itself through you, as you, not trying to become enlightened, just trying to remain present. there is a story of a woman who sat by the river every day. She didn't call it meditation. She just watched the water. One day, a monk passed and asked, "Why do you sit here, always looking?" She said, "The river tells me everything I need to know." "How so?" the monk asked. She replied, "It flows without effort. It carries what it carries. It doesn't argue with the stone. It doesn't rush the bend. It simply moves and shows me how to live." That is the practice. Not pushing, not pulling, just flowing with full attention. The city. This practice becomes even more powerful. You're in a crowd and you feel overwhelmed. Instead of escaping, you pause, you breathe, you feel your feet. You notice overwhelm is here. That's all. No fixing, just seeing. You're at work and a wave of insecurity rises instead of spiraling. You name it softly, doubt. And you watch it move through like wind through a curtain. You don't need to do anything. Just notice. And in noticing, you begin to see you are not the thought. You are not the mood. You are the space that holds it all. So many ask, how can I stop suffering? The deeper question is, can I stop running from it? Can I sit beside it? Can I be still while the storm passes? Because the storm always passes. What remains is the sky, and you are the sky. Let today be your practice. Don't try to be better. Don't try to be calm. Don't try to be spiritual. Just see. Watch your hands move. Watch your breath rise. Watch your impatience, your kindness, your doubt, your love. Watch it all without needing to change any of it. And in that watching, you'll discover meditation is not becoming someone new. It's remembering you were always whole, even in the chaos. Even in the mess, even now, we often look for awakening in grand places, a silent temple, a deep retreat, a mountaintop. We imagine it arriving like a flash of lightning, dramatic, unforgettable, earth-shaking, but in truth, it usually arrives much quieter, in a single breath, in a glance exchanged, in the steam rising from a morning cup of tea. This is the paradox of mindfulness. It is vast, and it is found in the very smallest things. You wake up. The light filtering through your window is soft, golden. You feel the warmth of the blanket, the breath in your chest, the sleepy flutter of your fingers. This first moment is practice. No need to get anywhere. No need to achieve anything. Just feel. Just notice. Mindfulness is not a task. It is a way of meeting each moment with gentle, open attention, noticing the texture of your life, one simple layer at a time. You brush your teeth, feel the bristles, smell the mint, notice the sound of water. Feel your weight shifting slightly as you stand. This is not trivial. This is the doorway. Every act, no matter how mundane, is a chance to come home to the now. You walk to the kitchen. The floor is cool beneath your feet. You open the fridge. A gust of cold touches your skin. You reach for an orange. Its skin is rough, dimpled. You peel slowly. Juice clings to your fingers. A small spray of citrus drifts into the air. You eat. One slice, one breath. Present, alive. This is mindfulness. Not in a monastery. Not in theory. but here with an orange, in a kitchen, on an ordinary Tuesday morning. We miss so much of life because we are waiting for something bigger, a better moment, a quieter time, a sign. But mindfulness is not about waiting. It's about noticing what's already here. And what's here is always enough if we pay attention. There's a story of a teacher who was asked, "How do you stay present all the time?" He smiled and said, "When I walk, I walk. When I eat, I eat. When I speak, I speak. When I listen, I listen." The student said, "But don't we all do that?" The teacher replied, "No. Most people, when they walk, they are already arriving. When they eat, they are thinking. When they speak, they are preparing. When they listen, they are waiting to speak." Mindfulness is returning to the real, the exact moment you are in, without leaning forward, without looking back. It's raining outside. You're stuck in traffic. You're holding groceries. You're feeling impatient. What happens if, just for 5 seconds, you drop the story? You stop labeling the moment. You stop wishing it were different. And instead, you feel the rain. You see the shapes in the window. You hear your breath. You are there, fully. For 5 seconds, 5 sacred seconds, you are free. That is mindfulness, not perfection, but presence. You try this today. Pick one ordinary task: washing dishes, folding clothes, walking to your car, and do it with your whole attention. Feel the water. Notice the scent. Listen to the smallest sounds. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be real. Your life, your actual life, is made of these moments. The small ones, the in-between ones, the ones we usually overlook. But when you bring presence to them, they become luminous. And there's a woman who works at a library. Every day, she stamps books. She arranges shelves. She answers the same questions. People pass her by. But she has a secret: practice. Every time she opens a book, she silently bows to the story inside. Every time she greets a visitor, she looks them in the eye fully. She does nothing unusual, but her coworkers say she has a calm about her, a peace. That calm isn't magic. It's attention, soft, patient, grounded attention, and it changes everything. You don't need a new life to be mindful. You don't need a new job, a new home, a new schedule. You only need a new relationship with what's already here. You can begin now. This breath, this moment, this heartbeat. You are alive, and that is enough. Sometimes we think mindfulness must be serious, but children are some of the best teachers. Watch a child with a puddle. They don't think, "I should enjoy this." They don't ask, "Am I being mindful?" They just play, fully. Wet socks, muddy hands, laughter echoing. No distraction, no agenda. Just now. And then, when it's over, they move on, not clinging, not regretting. Free. That is mindfulness. That is wisdom, and it wears rain boots. When you live this way, the world softens. You start to see colors more clearly. You hear the song in traffic. You feel the kindness in small gestures, the held door, the silent smile, the shared umbrella. You stop rushing past your life, and you begin to feel its quiet rhythm like a gentle drum beneath your feet. That rhythm is always there. You just needed to slow down enough to hear it. So now, pause. Feel your hands. Take a slow breath. Notice where your body touches the earth. And whisper, if only inside, this is enough. Not later. Not after healing. Not after success. Not after the to-do list is cleared. Now, here, in this small living moment, where mindfulness waits not as a technique, but as a homecoming. In a quiet monastery, on the edge of a forest, far from the cities and noise, there lived a monk known not for his sermons or scriptures, but for how he cleaned the floor. He was old, thin as a reed, his back hunched slightly. His robes were plain, even among monks. He never gave talks, never taught formal classes, but every morning, just after the temple bell rang, he could be seen kneeling with a cloth in hand, polishing the wooden floors of the meditation hall. Slowly, deliberately, silently. Some whispered he had been enlightened long ago. Others thought he was just a humble servant. But those who watched him closely knew something sacred was happening. When young novices arrived at the monastery, eager to study sutras and dive into deep teachings, they were often surprised. Instead of lectures, they were assigned to help clean. Start with the meditation hall. The abbot would say, and so they would go half-heartedly, impatiently, dragging brooms, muttering under their breath, until they met him, the floor-cleaning monk. He would greet them with a bow, a smile, then hand them a cloth. Not like that, he'd say gently when they scrubbed too fast. Not like that, when they scrubbed too hard. And then he'd demonstrate one breath, one stroke, one moment. Wipe, breathe, pause, wipe again. It was maddening. Why does it matter, one novice once asked. It's just dust. The old monk looked up, eyes soft. It's never just dust. He whispered, it's this moment. Over time, the students began to notice things. When they moved slowly, their minds followed. When they focused on each motion, the noise inside quieted. When they let go of finishing and simply stayed with doing, a strange peace arose. Floor by floor, cloth by cloth. They began to understand. This was not cleaning. This was practice. This was meditation in motion. One day, a student burst into the abbot's quarters. I think I finally understand, he said. Today, while scrubbing, I lost track of time. My hands moved without thinking. My breath was slow. I felt free, like I wasn't doing anything, but everything was being done. The abbot smiled. Good. You've met the real teacher. Who? The student asked. The floor. The abbot replied. We often separate meditation from daily life. We think sitting in silence is practice, and cleaning is just a chore. But the monk knew there is no such division. The sacred hides inside the ordinary. If we meet it fully, if we surrender to it completely, not because it's special, but because we are present. You don't need a temple. You don't need robes. You don't need to shave your head. You only need a task and attention. Washing dishes, folding laundry, watering a plant, each act can be a prayer. Each motion can be a bell, not to summon gods, but to awaken you. Here, now, this exact breath. Think of your next task: vacuuming, cooking, taking out the trash, instead of rushing. Pause instead of resisting. Breathe instead of finishing. Feel. Ask yourself, can I do this not to be done but to be here? And then begin. Touch the broom like it's the first time. Feel the texture of the handle. Notice the sound against the floor. Move slowly. Move with care. This is not housework. This is heart work. One monk, when asked the secret to peace, said, "I fold my blanket with both hands." That's it. Simple, but full. Full of attention. Full of now. Full of life. Back at the monastery, the old monk continued his work. Years passed. Students came and went. Some moved on to teach, some to study further, but many returned years later with tears in their eyes. I didn't understand then, they'd say, but now I see. You taught me how to live. He would smile, hand them a cloth, and say, then let's begin again. Eventually, he passed away, quietly. As quietly as he lived, they found him sitting upright, cloth in hand, by a freshly polished floor. He had cleaned his way into death, as he had lived, one breath at a time. In his honor, the temple changed nothing. No statue, no plaque, only a sign above the meditation hall. Every floor is sacred. Walk softly. And now, in a busy world full of rush and distraction, you can carry this story with you. Let the floor beneath you become your path. Let each task become your temple. Let your hands, however tired, however ordinary, become instruments of presence, because the teaching is not in the technique. It is in the attention, and attention transforms everything. We often imagine meditation as stillness, a quiet room, closed eyes, a straight spine, no movement, no sound, just silence. But what if meditation is not confined to the cushion? What if meditation walks? What if it breathes in crowded elevators? What if it sees through tired eyes at the end of a long day? What if every part of your life, every breath, footstep, glance is a gate to awakening? Let's begin with breath. It's always there, from the moment you were born until the moment you leave. Inhale, exhale, rising, falling. Life's quiet music, playing beneath everything, most days. We ignore it. We breathe unconsciously, lost in thought, pulled by plans. But when we return to the breath, we return to this moment, this body, this aliveness. Try now. Pause. Inhale softly. Feel the air touch your nostrils. Exhale. Feel the body release. There's no need to change the breath. Just meet it, as you would an old friend. That's it. That's meditation? Then there is the footstep, so ordinary, so forgotten, but sacred if you bring awareness. When you walk, don't rush, don't aim for arrival. Let walking be the destination. Each step, a touch of earth. Each heel, a kiss on the ground. Each toe, a moment of balance. You are not traveling. You are arriving with each footfall, and when the mind drifts, as it will, gently return. Left, right, here, now. There's a monk who walks every morning before sunrise, barefoot, silent, eyes soft. He doesn't walk to go anywhere. He walks to feel each inch of path beneath him. Rain or shine, cold or warm. He walks like each step matters. Because it does. The earth carries us every day. Rarely do we say thank you. Mindful walking is gratitude in motion. Now consider the gaze, not the hurried glance of a distracted mind, but the soft gaze of presence. Try this. Look around the room. Don't name what you see. Don't analyze. Just let the light reach your eyes. Let shapes exist without labels. That chair, that window, that wall, see them like it's the first time. And in doing so, you meet reality not through thought, but through direct seeing. Even the eyes can meditate, not by closing, but by opening differently. Imagine this. You're on the train. Instead of checking your phone, you notice your breath. Instead of counting stops, you feel the sway of motion. You glance at someone, not to judge, just to witness. Human to human. That, too, is meditation. You are no longer just a commuter. You are a participant in this moment. Alive, aware. Some people sit for hours and call it meditation. Others fold laundry with full presence and touch enlightenment. It's not about posture. It's about attention. And attention can be everywhere. In laughter, in sorrow, in scrubbing a pan. Meditation doesn't need incense or mantras. It needs you whole. Here. Listening. The Buddha once said, "I teach only two things, suffering, and the end of suffering." But how did he teach it? Not just through sermons, through how he ate, how he walked, how he looked at a leaf. Every action was his teaching, not the words. The presence within the words. So how can you live this way? Start simply. Choose one thing today. Drinking tea, brushing your hair, washing your hands. And do it as if it matters more than anything. Because in that moment, it does. Bring your breath with you. Bring your gaze. Bring your feet. Let your whole body meditate, not just your mind, and slowly, the boundaries dissolve. Meditation becomes not what you do, but how you live. There's a man who wakes early every day, not to sit, but to stand by the window. He watches the sky change, the way light moves, the way clouds breathe. No goal, no achievement, just being with what is. His daughter once asked, "What are you doing, Dad?" He smiled, saying good morning to the world. That's it. That's practice. That's enough. You can do it too. Not tomorrow. Not when you're less busy. Now, this breath, this moment, right where you are. Breathe, step, see, and in that seeing, discover you were never separate from the sacred. You just hadn't slowed down enough to feel it. Let the breath remind you you're alive. Let the feet remind you you belong. Let the eyes remind you this world is still full of wonder. You don't need to escape to find peace. You only need to arrive. Here. Now. Fully. There's a quiet moment. After the tears. After the fight. After the denial fades, when something inside finally whispers, "This is happening." It may come after a loss. After a breakup. After a diagnosis. After the dream slips through your hands. And in that whisper, something begins to shift. Not because it feels good, not because it makes sense, but because it's real. Acceptance doesn't arrive with fireworks. It doesn't announce peace. It simply says, "This is what is." And in that simple recognition, the possibility of freedom is born. But acceptance is often misunderstood. People think it means giving up, letting people walk all over you, tolerating injustice, enduring pain without protest. But that's not acceptance. That's resignation. That's defeat. Acceptance is something else, something deeper. It's the courage to see things clearly, without needing them to be different. It's the strength to stop arguing with reality, even when it hurts. It's saying, "I don't like this. I wouldn't choose it, but I won't resist it anymore," because resistance adds suffering. Acceptance doesn't erase the pain. It removes the struggle around the pain. And in that space, something new can grow. There's a woman who lost her job. She cried. She panicked. She blamed herself. She blamed the world. For weeks, she stayed in bed, fighting what had happened. But one morning, something softened. She sat up. She opened the window. She whispered, "Okay." Just one word, but it changed everything. Not because she had a plan, not because she felt strong, but because she stopped fighting. And in that stillness, she saw clearly for the first time what she'd been holding on to was already gone. Her job, her image, her certainty. She hadn't lost them in that moment. She had lost them long ago. But now, she was ready to see it. And from there, her healing began. Not forward, not upward, but inward. Acceptance does not mean liking what happened. It means acknowledging that it did happen. And from there, we can choose our next step consciously, compassionately, without clinging to the way it should have been, without demanding it be something else. Because the truth is, life doesn't obey our preferences. It moves according to its own rhythm, sometimes gentle, sometimes violent, sometimes incomprehensible. Our power lies not in controlling that rhythm, but in how we dance with it. Recall something in your life you wish were different. A pain, a loss, a disappointment. Notice the tension in your body as you think about it. The resistance, the judgment, the story. Now, breathe, and softly say, "This is what's here." Not to give up, but to ground yourself, to stop spinning, to meet this moment as it is with clarity, with grace. That is the beginning of peace. There's a monk who once sat with a terminally ill patient. The patient asked, "How can I accept this?" The monk said nothing for a long time. Then finally, he spoke. "Acceptance does not mean you stop grieving. It means you grieve without turning away. Grieve. Fully. Cry. Fully. And when the wave passes, breathe again. Stay with what's here, even if it breaks your heart, especially then. Because in accepting what hurts, you begin to reclaim your power, not the power to avoid pain, but the power to feel it without fear, to walk with it, not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Every wound has wisdom. If we stop covering it with resistance, if we let it speak, if we let it be. Imagine holding a stone in your hand. The tighter you grip, the more it cuts. But if you open your palm, the stone is still there, but it no longer harms you. That is what acceptance does. It opens the palm, it holds without gripping, it sees without collapsing, it feels without drowning, and in that space, you can breathe again. Acceptance is not passive. It's the beginning of wise action. When you see clearly, you act clearly, not from panic, not from denial, but from presence. Acceptance doesn't mean you stop setting boundaries. It means you set them from love, not fear. It doesn't mean you approve of injustice. It means you fight it with open eyes, not clenched fists. You stop pushing reality away and start participating in it, fully awake. In the end, all spiritual paths return to this question. Can you be with what is not as a victim, not as a hero, just as a human, open, fragile, real? This is not weakness. This is strength, the strength to let go of illusion, to step out of the war with life and into the quiet ground of now. So, today, sit for a moment, feel your breath, feel your body, feel what's here, joy, sadness, tension, hope, and whisper gently, this, too, is part of the path. This, too, belongs. And in that whisper, you join something vast, not in giving up, but in coming home. There is a tree at the edge of the village. Each autumn, its leaves turn gold. One by one, they loosen their grip. They don't fall all at once. They wait until the wind whispers just enough, until the moment is right. And then they let go, effortless. No drama, no regret. They surrender to gravity, to time, to life. Letting go is like that. It cannot be rushed. It cannot be forced. It happens when the soul's ready, not a second before. We hear the phrase often, just let go, as if it were easy, as if we could snap our fingers and release all our pain, our attachments, our fears. But the truth is, letting go is a process, a slow loosening, a gradual softening. It's not a command, it's a practice. one breath at a time. There's a woman holding on to a relationship that ended long ago. Not because she's foolish, not because she's weak, but because her heart hasn't caught up with the facts. Memories linger. What-ifs haunt her sleep. She's told herself 100 times, it's time to move on. But the ache stays. So one day, she stops fighting. She walks to the park. She sits beneath a tree, and she watches the leaves fall. She doesn't pray for release. She doesn't beg to be free. She just watches, and slowly, something in her learns. Letting go doesn't mean erasing the past. It means opening the hand that clutches it. Try this now. Close your eyes. Imagine something you've been holding on to, a hurt, a regret, an expectation. Feel it in your body. Where does it live? Your chest? Your throat? Your belly now? Breathe into that place. Not to push it out, not to fix it, just to acknowledge it, to say, yes, this is here. And as you breathe, imagine your grip softening. Imagine your fingers opening, leaf by leaf, not all at once, just enough to feel the breeze of freedom touch your skin. Letting go is not forgetting. It's not pretending. It's not erasing the story. It's rewriting your relationship with it. So, it no longer owns you, no longer defines you, no longer weighs you down. There's a Zen parable. Two monks are walking. They come to a river. A woman stands at the edge, afraid to cross, without a word. One monk lifts her and carries her to the other side. Hours later, the second monk says, "You shouldn't have done that. We monks don't touch women." The first monk smiles. "I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" So many of us are still carrying things we've already put down in reality. But in the mind, we grip them tightly. Letting go means setting them down in thought, in heart, in story. Not because we must, but because we can. Look at nature. The tree doesn't force the leaf to fall. It simply stops holding on. And when it does, the leaf doesn't crash. It dances, it twirls, it becomes wind's partner. That's how you know you've truly let go, when the falling becomes flight. But it's okay if you're not there yet. Letting go takes time. It takes kindness, especially toward yourself. You might loosen today and tighten tomorrow. That's okay. The practice is not in being free. It's in returning again and again to the willingness to release, even if just a little, even if only inside. There's a man who lost everything in a fire: home, paintings, photographs, letters. He stood among the ashes, empty, for months. He said nothing. Friends brought food, held his hands. He would only nod, until one day, he returned to the ruins. He picked up a charred frame and smiled. "This," he said, "was my favorite photo." A friend asked, "Aren't you sad?" He nodded, "Yes. And also, I feel light." He had wept. He had mourned. And slowly, like a leaf from a branch, his grief had loosened its grip. Letting go isn't clean. It's messy. It arrives in waves. It stings. It frees. It stings again. But through it all, something tender emerges. compassion for the self that clung, for the self that didn't know how, for the self that is learning now. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where your heart needs you to be. The leaf falls when it's ready. So will you. Today, sit with whatever you are holding. Don't force. Don't perform. Just be with it. Let it speak. Let it rest in your open palm. And when the wind is right, when the soul is ready, you'll feel it. That first gentle movement, not to discard, but to release, to return, to begin again, like a leaf in autumn, graceful, quiet, free. When we think of freedom, we picture open skies, wide roads, choices without limits, a life untethered from responsibility, from pain, from restraint. But life rarely offers that kind of freedom. We live inside roles, relationships, limitations. We face heartbreak, illness, deadlines, loss. The world doesn't always bend to our will. Does that mean we can't be free? Or does it mean we've misunderstood what freedom truly is? Real freedom is not the absence of difficulty. It is the presence of inner spaciousness even within difficulty. It is not needing the world to be perfect. Before we feel peace, it is walking through chaos with a quiet center. It is not about escape. It is about presence. There is a man in a small apartment. He cannot travel. He cares for his aging mother. His days are routine. His nights are silent. But he meditates every morning. And when he does, he says, "In this breath, I am free." Because freedom is not out there. It's not waiting at the edge of achievement or at the summit of a mountain. It's inside the way you meet the moment, the way you respond, the way you breathe through the storm instead of running from it. There's a bird in a cage. The door is open, but the bird doesn't fly. Why? Because it has forgotten its wings. This is us trapped not by walls, but by belief. We think I'll be free when I succeed, when I'm healthy, when they understand me, when I find love. But freedom is not a future event. It's a way of being available now. Try this. Right where you are in the room you're in, with the body you have, with the life you live. Close your eyes. Take one breath and ask, can I meet this moment without needing it to be different, if even for a second? The answer is yes. That is freedom. There's a story from the Zen tradition. A student asks the master, "What is freedom?" The master replies, "Total acceptance of what is and the freedom to act with wisdom within it." Freedom is not passive. It's not pretending nothing matters. It's moving from clarity, not compulsion. It's choosing your response instead of reacting from fear or habit. You can be in a crowd and feel free. You can be in solitude and feel imprisoned. The difference is not around you. It is within you. Think of someone who wronged you. Maybe you still carry that story. Replay the moment. Feel the hurt. You may think, if only they apologized, I'd be free. But what if freedom came not from them, but from you? What if it came from releasing the story, from forgiving, not to excuse, but to unchain your own heart. Forgiveness is not for them. It's for the self that deserves peace. That is freedom. There's a prisoner locked behind bars, but inside, he meditates, he writes, he listens deeply, he forgives, he smiles. Guards notice something strange. This man sentenced to life radiates peace. How? Because though his body is confined, his spirit is not. He chose not to carry bitterness. He chose to meet each day as practice. He is freer than many who walk outside. And then there's you. With your responsibilities, your fears, your joys, your regrets. Can you find space within all of it? Not by pushing it away, but by softening around it, like water around a stone. You don't need to control the river. You only need to float. Let go of the story that says I need different circumstances to be at peace. Instead, ask, how can I relate to this? With presence. That question opens doors even in locked rooms. And freedom is not being untouched by life. It is being unhooked by it. Not immune to pain, but not enslaved by it. Not indifferent, but undefended. Today, notice where you feel confined, maybe in a job, a relationship, a memory, a belief. Instead of running, sit with it. Ask, what am I believing about this? What if I could soften my grip? What part of this is in my control and what part isn't? And slowly, a shift begins. You stop needing control. You start practicing release. You step out of the cage not by changing the bars, but by realizing the door has always been open. There's a monk who sweeps the temple every morning. He never complains. He never rushes. Someone asks, "Why do you sweep so joyfully?" He answers, "Because in each stroke, I remember I am free, not because of what I do, but because of how I do it." That is the secret. You can sweep floors, answer emails, raise children, face illness, mourn loss, and still be free. Because freedom is not what you do. It's how you meet the doing. So today, breathe, feel your feet, notice the space around you, and whisper, "I am free." Not because everything is perfect, but because I no longer demand that it be. Because I choose to meet this life with presence, with courage, with love. And in that choice, you are unshackled, you are home, you are free, in a small, dim prison cell somewhere in Southeast Asia. A man sat cross-legged on the concrete floor. No cushion, no robes, no incense. But in his stillness, there was the unmistakable presence of a monk. His name was not spoken often. Those who remembered him before his arrest said he had once been a forest monk, quiet, serene, known for walking barefoot, even through gravel and thorn. But the war came. Lines were drawn. Truth became dangerous. And in one sweep, he was taken accused of aiding the enemy by offering water to the wrong side. He never defended himself. He simply bowed and followed the guards into darkness. The cell was narrow, suffocating. No windows, bare walls. Sometimes food came, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes beatings came, sometimes silence. But every morning, before the guards awoke, the monk would begin his practice, breathing in, breathing out, sitting, witnessing, letting go. One day, a fellow prisoner asked him, "Why do you still meditate?" The monk smiled, eyes soft. "Because this," he said, "is where freedom lives." The prisoner laughed bitterly. "Freedom? You call this freedom?" The monk nodded. "They've taken my robes, my temple, even my name, but they cannot take my breath. They cannot take my awareness." They cannot take how I meet this moment. Over the years, he taught no classes. He gave no sermons. But slowly, other prisoners began to sit near him, drawn by his silence, by the strange light in his eyes. He never said, "Follow me." He never said, "This is the way." He only listened. He only breathed. And in doing so, he became a mirror reflecting something whole inside others, something untouched by pain. There was one guard cruel, angry, unpredictable. He took pleasure in watching the monk bleed, but the monk never flinched, never cursed, never looked away. Once, the guard shouted, "Why don't you fight back?" The monk looked at him, gently. "I do," he whispered. "I fight to keep my heart open." Decades passed, the war ended, prisoners were released. The monk walked out thin, weathered, almost transparent. He didn't ask for justice. He didn't demand apology. He bowed to the prison gate and whispered, "Thank you for being my teacher." Years later, a journalist found him in a quiet monastery. She asked him, "Do you regret losing those years?" He smiled. "I didn't lose them. I learned to stop seeking freedom outside." She paused, and now he closed his eyes. "I am still in the same cell, only now it has no walls." This is not just a story of survival. It is a story of transformation, of how the mind, when trained in awareness, becomes a refuge even in hell. The monk was not superhuman. He felt pain. He felt fear. But he did not become the pain. He did not live inside the fear. He watched it, held it, and chose compassion again and again. We are all imprisoned in some way, by circumstance, by history, by the stories we tell ourselves. But the walls are not always real. Sometimes they crumble the moment we stop believing in them, the moment we sit still and see clearly. Try this. Imagine your own cell, the place in your life where you feel trapped. A job, a regret, a fear. Close your eyes, breathe, and ask, what am I believing about this? What part of this prison have I built myself then? Like the monk. Sit, breathe. Let the walls breathe with you. And notice with time some of them begin to dissolve. Not because you escape, but because you wake up inside them. The monk in the prison didn't change the world around him. He changed the way he related to it. That shift from resistance to presence is the path, not only for monks, but for us, you, me, All of us carrying unseen shackles. All of us waiting for a key, not knowing the key has always been in our breath. Anar. When you sit today, don't aim for bliss. Don't demand peace. Just sit, like a monk in a cell. Watch your mind wander. Watch your pain rise. Watch the old stories knock. And say, I see you, but I am here now. This right here is the beginning of freedom. No matter the walls, no matter the weight, freedom, like the monk, begins in stillness and ends in love. There is a silence that does not come from quiet rooms. It is not the silence of absence. It is the silence of presence full, steady, whole. It lives beneath sound, beneath emotion, beneath thought. It is the final quiet, the mind that no longer needs to react, the heart that no longer trembles with each wave, the soul that rests like a mountain, unmoved by storm. We often seek peace through control. If I can just fix this, if they would just understand me, if things were different, I could finally relax. But life does not bend to our expectations. It rises, falls, cracks, heals, it gives, then takes. No amount of control brings peace. What brings peace is the ability to remain, to stay, even when it hurts, to feel without being thrown, to see without grabbing. The Buddha was once asked, "What is the highest attainment of your path?" He answered, "A mind that is not moved, not unmoved like stone hardened, cold, but unmoved like deep water still, even as wind dances on its surface. A mind like that is not blind. It sees everything, but it chooses not to be pushed, not to be pulled. It sees joy and does not chase it. It sees pain and does not flinch. It welcomes both as guests without giving them a throne. This is equanimity, the steady flame that does not flicker with each gust of emotion, not because it's stubborn, but because it knows all things come and go, and what comes does not need to be feared. What goes does not need to be clung to. There was a woman who lost her son. Her grief was vast, wild, unspeakable. For months, she could not eat, could not speak. Then one evening, she sat at his bed, touched the blanket, and whispered, "You were never mine," not out of coldness, out of clarity. She realized he came through her, but he did not belong to her. And in that knowing, something opened, not relief, but stillness, a quiet that held her, even as the tears continued. That is equanimity, not the end of sorrow, but the beginning of peace inside it. Try this. Think of a moment when life disappointed you. A betrayal, a failure, a change you didn't ask for. Now sit, and instead of analyzing, ask, what if I don't have to react? What if I can let this be without becoming it? Not numb, not frozen, just here, present, watching the storm pass, knowing you are not the storm. In the old texts, there is a story of a sage who walked barefoot into a kingdom in chaos. People ran, panicked, shouted, but the sage walked slowly, smiling. A guard stopped him. "Why aren't you afraid?" The sage replied, Fear belongs to the mind that clings. I am not clinging. He continued on, leaving only footprints and silence behind. To reach such stillness is not to escape life. It is to live it fully without being captured by it. You still love, still grieve, still laugh, but you are not owned by any of it. You see clearly, feel deeply, and return, always, to the still center inside. Some call this detachment, but true detachment is not coldness. It is warmth without possession, love without demand, care without control. Like the sun shining on all things, but holding nothing. Like the sky welcoming every cloud, but never becoming one. That is the freedom of the final quiet. There's a monk who lives alone by a lake. Every morning, he watches the sunrise. He does not meditate for peace. He does not sit for enlightenment. He simply watches, breathes, smiles. When asked his secret, he says, "Nothing outside disturbs me, because I've stopped disturbing myself inside. It didn't come overnight." He wept, he doubted, he raged, but he stayed. Through every storm he stayed, and slowly, the storms stopped reaching him. They still passed, but they no longer pulled him under. You, too, can begin this path, not by becoming a monk, but by softening your reactions. Each time anger arises, pause. Each time joy arises, breathe. Each time fear whispers, listen but don't follow. But let everything pass through you, like wind through a field, and return, again and again, to the stillness beneath it all. This is the final quiet, not silence, but peace within sound, not withdrawal, but presence, without resistance, not escape, but freedom in the center of the storm. So tonight, when you lie down, place one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, feel the rhythm, feel the breath, and whisper, "No matter what comes, I remain." That is the vow of the quiet mind. That is the promise of peace. That is the end of seeking and the beginning of being. We began with a question, not spoken aloud, but felt quietly in the heart. Is peace possible? Here, now, within this very life and along the way. We listened to breath and silence, to sorrow and surrender, to stories of monks and mothers, of falling leaves and steady minds. Not to find answers, but to remember what we already knew, that peace does not wait at the end of the path, it is the path. That freedom is not elsewhere, it is here, in how we choose to meet the moment, in each breath surrendered without force, in each step taken without seeking, in each emotion held without defense. When we stop chasing stillness and begin becoming it, something changes. Life no longer pulls us in all directions. We no longer lose ourselves in every high and low.